Welcome to Turning Point. I'm Becky Alfrey. Several returning faces appear in today's show, reminding us the importance each person plays in our everyday lives. They also tell how our choices affect those surrounding us, as well as countless others. Local artist Keith Blum had a vision that his wife had trouble grasping. However, this savvy husband opened her eyes and mind to a whole new world, which brought prosperity and joy to their lives.
Until I was 29 years old, and I was a hairstylist, and I was married at the time. We had bought our first house. We had remodeled it. It was a fixer, and it was very small. I laid a black and white tiled floor in the kitchen and the breakfast area, and I stood back looking at it, and I was thinking, God, this breakfast area is so small. Like, how are we even going to get a table in there? And I had this vision that I was going to paint on the wall the black and white floor to keep going, like the wall wasn't there, with a lot of perspective to make it feel bigger when you looked at the room. So I said to my wife, I'm going to take black and white paint and I'm going to paint the wall to look like the floor continues. She said, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I am. She said, no, you're not. I said, no, really, I am. We had a big argument. And the way we resolved the argument was we said, I had to promise, when I'm done, if you don't like it, I'll roll paint over the wall. I'll restore it back to how it is. And then when I finished painting it, she said, well, now that you got the floor going out, you got to paint like a balustrade wall on the end of the floor. And then now you got to paint the column in the corner. And I think we need some treetops now, over here. And it just kept evolving and evolving until it was a whole mural that I did in our breakfast room. And I loved it. And it turned me on. I was more excited from painting that wall with all that illusion than any drawing I had ever done or any little painting that I ever did. So I started painting murals in every room of the house. And then in our backyard where my neighbor's garage, the side wall, faced my yard, I painted it to look like my yard was bigger. I painted a whole extension of our yard. And my sister-in-law had a restaurant. I painted a mural in there. My other sister, my real sister, her and her husband were remodeling a house. So I painted a mural there on the side of the house, and their neighbor saw it. And their neighbor approached me and said, could we hire you to paint something in our bathroom? Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. And it wasn't a lot of money. This was back in 1985. It was not a lot of money. It was $200. It was a small little thing I painted on the ceiling, an art ceiling, a little trellis. And I painted it, spent the whole day doing it. They hugged me, they thanked me, they wrote me a check for $200, and they put mural art in the memo. And I kept looking at that and looking at that, and I put it in my pocket, and I think I carried it in my pocket for 2 to 3 weeks before I put it in the bank. And every now and then I would take it out of my pocket and look at it. It blew me away. I got paid for painting on a wall, for doing something that I enjoyed probably more than they enjoyed having it done. And they paid me for it. They thanked me for it. They hugged me on my way out. And that was a big turning point in my life. That's when I realized, yes, I can make money from doing what I love to do, from my artwork. I can do this. It's not just a hobby. It's way more than a hobby. So I kept painting murals. I painted everybody who I knew. I painted murals in their houses. I would beg them, let me paint it. If you don't like it, I'll roll paint over it afterwards, just like I did with my wife. And everybody loved it. And strangers started calling me and asking me to come to their homes and asking me to come to their offices or asking me to come to their, restaurant or whatever business they had. And within a year, I got a job at a fabric store on Pico Boulevard called F&S Fabrics in Westwood, in West LA. And the first one I did for them was all flowers on the outside of the building, right on Pico Boulevard. And within a month after completing that job, I was getting 2 or 3 phone calls every week from people who were driving down Pico, and they would see this and they wanted it. One woman stopped me while I was painting it, and she said, I need you in my home. You have to come and you have to paint for me. I've been looking for somebody like you. And I painted in her home, and it turned out that her husband is a senior partner at this huge law firm in downtown LA called Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher. And when he saw what I was doing in his house, he said, now you got to come do something in my office. So I painted it on it was like the 48th floor or whatever in the downtown office building. I ended up painting 14 murals at the Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher offices in downtown LA. I painted 4 or 5 in his house. One of the other senior partners, I think his name was Holiday, had me paint murals there. I was painting in restaurants, hotels. People started flying me out of town to go painting. And for 12, 14, 15 years, I was just painting murals and having a blast. I was going everywhere. I was busy. It's been great. It's been a fantastic journey for me. So the 2 biggest impacts was when I was 7 years old, I found out I could draw, and when I was 29, I found out I could actually make a living at it. And both of them were accidental, and I loved it. I feel very, very, very fortunate, very lucky. So I really enjoy painting 3D illusion, painting murals that totally fool the eye, trompe-l'oeil they call it, which means to fool the eye. That's what I do.
For more information on how to draw and paint like the masters, call Keith at this number.
I have had some other turning points in my life. My niece called me, she says, Uncle Keith, I don't know what I'm going to do. We want to get married in Malibu, on the beach, on the sand. She says, every rabbi we contacted, they don't want to come to the beach. Or if they do, doing interfaith on the beach, on that day, they wanted to charge a lot of money. And every minister that we contacted who was willing to come to the beach on that day, they wanted to charge a lot of money, so we don't know what we're going to do. I said to her, I got an idea. I've heard about people going online and getting ordained, and it's legal. I'll go online, I'll get ordained, and I'll do your wedding. I'll come to the beach, I'll make it fun, and it'll be cool. And she said, that would be fantastic. So I did. I went online. It took about 2 minutes. I was so skeptical. When I got off the computer, I called the county office in LA and I said, listen, I just went online and I got ordained by some church online, and I'm going to officiate for my niece. And I don't want this to come back and haunt her in 10 years or 20 years and I ever find out that it wasn't legal. I said, so I want to know, is it legal? Is this real? They said, who was the church? I said, the Universal Life Church. And they said, oh yeah, that's the biggest ordaining church in the country. So technically I'm an ordained minister. I said, wow, that's really cool. So I've now done 2 weddings and I've done 2 funerals. And I said to my niece just like a few days ago, because it was her anniversary, I said, you know what? I've done 2 weddings and 2 funerals. So as long as you guys stay married and those guys stay dead, I'm batting 1,000. My record is clean. So it's been fun. I've enjoyed it very much.
Once again, Gene Apple gives insight and grace to an event that would be a parent's worst nightmare.
I've had several turning points in my life, and one was a quite unexpected turning point when my son died. He was 20 years old, he was in college, and I was going through a traumatic time, as our whole family was. I had 5 children. The 2 girls were gone. They were grown and out of the house. So I still had 3 sons at home. However, one didn't live at home. He was in college. He was in Purdue University. He got sick. He came home at Thanksgiving time and was sick. But after the weekend, he wanted to go back to school because it was December. It was November at that time, right after Thanksgiving. And exams, he needed to study for exams. So he went back, but he came back again that weekend and he was not better, so doctor was in. It wasn't long until he was in the hospital. And the reason I said this was a traumatic time is because his father and I had recently separated. We'd been married for 24 years, almost 25 years at that point, and we had separated. So everybody was getting used to that. And when Dana was sick, and the doctor put him in the hospital to find out what's going on, I asked my husband to come back. I said the boys and I needed him at home. So he came back to the house. After not emergency surgery, but exploratory surgery, the doctors found that he had Crohn's disease. It was so far advanced, they really could not do anything about it. But when the doctor told me about Crohn's disease, I was waiting. My husband didn't want to go for the surgery, so I was in the waiting room. And the doctor came in with his nurse, and I thought, uh-oh, something bad. He can't be with me alone. Sure enough, he said it was Crohn's disease. I said, what is Crohn's disease? I've never heard of it. Is it cancer? He said, no, I wish it were cancer, because we know what to do for cancer. And we're just trial and error with Crohn's, but we'll do the best we can. So that was another segment of the Crohn's story, or at least of his illness. Within another week or so, he was obviously much worse, and on a Wednesday, the doctors told me that he wouldn't make it. And I said, oh yes, he will. He is really strong. He's a fighter. He's going to make it. I know he is. And later on that night, my sisters had come in from out of town. I had two who lived out of town, two daughters who were out of town. They all came in to be supportive. And I had told the girls when I called them on the phone, I said, Dana is very sick, but it's so close to Christmas, you guys need to come on home. And when he gets better, we'll all have Christmas together. So they were there, and staying in our house were all five of the children and my two sisters. My parents were, for the winter, in Roswell, New Mexico. They came back into their own home, so at least they weren't in the house. Well, on that Wednesday, when the doctor told me that Dana was not going to live, I said, yes, he is. And I went to dinner that night with my sisters, and suddenly I realized there were tears on my face. So that was, the truth was in there, but I wasn't going to admit it. That was Wednesday. On Friday, then they told me the bad news. They came out and told me that he was gone. And that was it. It was 4 weeks to the day when he first got sick. But it was Christmas time, and the girls were there. So I told my boys when I got home, and they heard the news, that they were going to go out and get a Christmas tree, and it was going to be decorated. And my sisters gathered around, and they said, have you done your shopping? And I said, are you kidding? No. I've been going to work and visiting the hospital. I haven't done any Christmas shopping. And they said, make up the list. We're going to shop for you. So my two sisters and I went out to the shopping mall the day before Christmas and did our shopping. And I felt like saying to every person who waited on me, my son just died, you know, but we're doing Christmas shopping anyway. But of course I didn't. We just did it. We just got it done, went home, wrapped them all up, and we had Christmas. But I knew from the beginning, when I knew that he was very sick, that I had to be strong for the kids. And I did. You know, I just concentrated on that. And even in the weeks following his death, I was in a daze, more or less, but I tried to be strong for the kids. And after 2 weeks, I worked in a law office at that time. I was not in school, I was in a law office working as a legal secretary. And one of the lawyers called me and said, Jean, I know this is very recent, but it's only been 2 weeks since your son died, but we need you, and I think it would be good for you to come back to work. So I did. I went back to work, and I would often find tears on my typewriter as I typed, but I did what I had to do, and we all recovered from it, but it was a matter of every day is a new day, and we're going forward. And Chris, the oldest girl, and she was the oldest child of 5, decided after the funeral that she could not leave. So she stayed behind. It ended up that she stayed until April, from December until April. But she was a trooper, and she talked with her brothers. They both don't remember that, but it happened. They were just completely, I don't even know how to describe it. They were so out of it. They couldn't absorb what had happened. It couldn't be. And they would sit alone. Dean would sit alone for periods of time, and Chris, his sister, would come in to talk to him. And the same with the younger one. My younger son, the youngest child at that time, was 13, and Chris talked to him too. But the other thing that happened is that by Chris staying there, she took hold of things. She started cooking meals. She did the laundry. And I cried a lot. I spent time alone, but I tried to be there when the boys needed me and go through with things. But after 2 weeks, I did have to go back to work. The lawyers called me and said they needed me there. I knew that life had to go on. It had to. And if it had been just me alone, I don't know if I could have felt that way, but the family was my support. And I was their support, and that was important for me to know that life does go on, and we were helping each other. And I think that's how we all survived it.
Many of us look to alternative choices when it comes to maintaining and creating a healthy lifestyle. Anne Marie Palmer recalls being a dental hygienist and experiencing unbearable pain. Her journey to become healed ended up creating her new career, Bikram Yoga.
Well, I'm a practicing registered dental hygienist, and after years of bending over patients, I did a number on my back. I really screwed it up. I had bad sciatica pain running down my leg. I had lower back immobility and pain, and I was in bad shape. And of course, the doctors all want to do invasive procedures. They wanted to pump me up with the cortisone. They talked about surgery. And being in the health professions, I didn't want to do anything invasive, so I started looking for other alternatives. And I found my way to Bikram Yoga about 9 years ago, and it saved my life, changed my life, saved my spine, and extended my dental hygiene career. So it's been amazing. Love it. Bikram Yoga is a hot yoga practice. It's 90 minutes. We do it in a heated environment, 105, 40% humidity. The heat is so healing. It adds an element that you normally don't get with other types of yoga, which is all good, as well as other forms of exercise. Everything's excellent to do for your body. But when you add that heat, it's a tool that allows the body to really heal itself. It's extremely healing. It strengthens the cardiovascular system, and it accelerates all of our medical benefits that we get when we're doing the different asanas, the different postures. Bikram Chowdhury created this whole series. He's from India, and he was a healer along with his guru back there, and people used to line up to get healed. And healing to them wasn't like Western medicine, the pills, the cortisone injections. It was yoga. And it would be, oh, you have this back issue, okay, do these 5 yoga postures. Oh, you have a neck problem, or you have internal situations with glands or organs, do these series of postures. And what Bikram found was, number one, it was very difficult to treat a whole host of patients individually like that. And he also found that he was, out of the 84 yoga poses, he kept taking out the same ones to heal the different ailments. There was a commonality of the ailments of the people that came through. So he thought, wow, well, instead of trying to heal individual by individual, why don't we have a series of these major postures, put them in a certain order, and do a class, and then we can get to the masses and heal a greater number of individuals all at once. So he put the series of postures in a specific order, one leads into the next, and then he strategically put these asanas in a perfect order so you're bending your body in different directions. You're going forward bends, side bends, squeezing, stimulating the organs and glands, releasing all the impurities, and then of course with the heavy sweating we're doing in that heated room, we're getting all those impurities out of our system. So it's an amazing series of exercises that allows you to heal your body inside and out. So it keeps everything in working order, but then you also look fabulous because it's great for weight control as well, which a lot of people come to when they want to do the series. You know, they'll have like neck injuries or back injuries, and they come for a specific reason and they leave solving a lot of other health benefits that they didn't realize that they were going to get.
Tara Coughlin recalls her childhood and how seemingly innocent moments can affect the rest of our lives.
You know, I look back and my parents were like, 21 when they had my brother and 23 when they had me. So they were young. You know, they'd have people over and stuff, and my dad would have a couple of beers, and they're not alcoholic or there was a problem, but it was always kind of cute that I could suck off the beer, and I thought it was cute. And as I started to get a little bit older, I started to realize that something happened. It was just, I was this introverted, shy little girl who had never been comfortable in her own skin, and it was like all of a sudden I could sit with the parents, and I could just kind of feel like I was a part of. And I remember the first time that my girlfriend and I, my neighbor girlfriend Stacy and I, we actually took a 6-pack from my dad. And we ran out, and we went down, I grew up in Connecticut, this nice little suburban town, upper middle class, and we took it out in the woods, and we drank it, and I drank 2 beers, and I came home, and nobody knew what was up, and nobody ever found out, and that was my secret. And it was just one of those things. It was like, I almost wish that my family had spoken about it. It's kind of like having the birds and the bees talk. We just didn't go there. We didn't, you know, they didn't think, and that secret was something I put in my pocket, because that was the one thing that made me feel like I was okay. You liked me. I liked me when I started drinking, and you know, by the time I was 13, there was cocaine introduced, there was marijuana introduced, there was the whole gamut, and you know, I was not the straight A student. You know, I was just going downhill, and we introduced what? Bulimia, and I was bulimic for 12 years, and this progressed, and I, you know, by the grace of God, I got into college. You know, when I went to college in Boston, the biggest party, you know, party city you can go to, and I don't remember a day we didn't drink. I mean, when I look at my college years, there was just this, today, you know, and I have memories of my just this gray cloud of, we went out and we drank every night. I needed to get spending money, even though I supposedly saved my money, you know, to go to college. My parents paid for it, but I had to have the spending money, and to get the spending money, I started cocktail waitressing. Well, I'm working a full-time job, and I'm in school, and I'm out drinking every night, and I'm getting home at 4 a.m., and I started doing all the drugs and moved myself to California. You know, let's change everything when I was 20 years old, and by the time I was 22, you know, it was just ugly. I didn't know anyone. I'm in San Francisco. I hit a bottom. I hit a bottom, and I just need to say there was no stopping point, and I was, you know, a myriad of drugs, and there was a night that I was out trying to score some blow, and I'd been drinking, and I ended up getting raped by 2 men, and I just, you know, there's no such thing as a coincidence. You know, I had this housemate that we had taken in to share the rent. I was living with this woman who was, she ended up an alcoholic later, but we bonded. You know, it was like, oh, you like to drink, I like to drink, you know, and we needed some more money in the house. And he had a crush on me, and I used to sit and talk with him every night, and he ended up being a recovering alcoholic. He hadn't shared his whole self with me, but he was the man I came home to that night. And he was the man that I came and told my story to about what had just happened. And he walked me to my first AA meeting. Well, I graduated myself from that program pretty quick. I got sober, okay? I got it that I was an alcoholic, there was no question, but I thought it was a crutch for people to be in the meetings. I didn't understand. I didn't do what they said, the change thing. You know, there was all this talk of, you know, when I was in those meetings, you know, there was this camaraderie with the people, but a lot of it was a spiritual camaraderie that I couldn't even touch upon. I didn't understand. So I chased what I call limited objectives, and I got a great job. I was very successful in sales. I had a business with my husband. I got married. We had property, you know, we had dogs, you know, I looked good. I had a nice wardrobe of clothes. We had the cars, you know, he had a Porsche, he had a Ferrari, he had, you know, I mean, it was working, whatever it was. And I grew my confidence there, and I thought everything was okay, but you know what? There was always something else to chase. There was always something missing, and I had a child, and my child, I won't get into this too much, but he had some significant health issues, and he's got congenital heart disease, and I walked through this sober. I walked through this without a God. I walked through this without any sort of spiritual connection other than I'm supposed to do this, and that was what was bigger than me, and I went through it, and we went through 5 open heart surgeries, and we went through all the challenges you go through, and I kept a good head on it, and I was the strong one for the family, but you know what? I was running scared inside. It was so bottled up, and it unloaded as my marriage started to unload. It unloaded in a fervor. It just you know. Suddenly I had 9 months of, you know, a relapse, and I was told in those rooms that, you know, it's a progressive disease. It's a progressive disease. And that always, you know, I was always like, yeah, what? You know, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to start drinking. I was up to 2 quarts of vodka in a couple of weeks. I was a closet drinker. I was on a morphine prescription. I was using that improperly. And between the two of them, you know, I ended up having to go to Betty Ford. And it was 9 months of, you know, sitting in meetings, drinking, not able to stop. And it just cunning, baffling, powerful disease. You know, I mean, it was just, there's no willpower. It's a disease of mind. And I got to walk into a place which I call home, which is my recovery. You know, I got to walk in and where I was criticized, blamed, shamed because I was a liar, cheat, and a thief because I didn't know anything different, you know, and it's just, you know, I knew these, you know, what I call, you know, my character defects, you know, they were my toolkit, you know, I knew how to do those things and it had worked for so long. You know, so I didn't magically go through Betty Ford, and I came out sober, but there's a lot of work to it, and that's why they call it recovery, you know. And that's what I say, all those things, one day at a time and stuff. But it was to walk through it, to be able to say, I'm willing to go to any length. That doesn't come when you walk in the door, you know. I mean, it's just, you know, you can't change who you are. This mind can't change this person, you know. And to be able to have the ability and to be able to find a God of my understanding and to be able to connect with that and to be able to have a sponsor that had a look in her eyes that showed me that I could trust someone. And even if I lied to her, and I lied to her a lot, and I did things my way, and I had to take another road and another road and another road, and I'm not talking about, you know, relapses. I'm just talking about, well, maybe I could cut a corner here. Maybe I can still go 80. You know, maybe I can still park in the red zone like I do when I drop my kid off at school, even though I've been doing it a year and getting away with it. There's always somebody, there's always looking over my shoulder, and that mental clutter that we have to live with ourselves and who we are. Do I owe that person an apology? Do I need to say I'm sorry to myself? Do I need to forgive someone? Do I need to practice the serenity prayer? You know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Well, I can say it. Can I do it? You know, and that's where it comes, that fine line. I mean, spirituality for me, you know, this time, and it's not something I put in my pocket. It's not something I keep. It's not, you know, it's not. It's a process. It's something that we walk through, and we walk through it daily, you know, and we walk through it together. You know, we are not. But for the grace of God, I am you. You are me. She is me. He is me. And if I'm not seeing, feeling, or expressing love, I ain't having a good time up here. You know, and the only way to do that is to try on the new behaviors. You know, happiness is. It's a choice, but it's the byproduct of right living. And that's what my recovery continues to give me, one day at a time, if I'm willing to walk through it. And there's a lot of new things that got to be done every day.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. For more information, call the number that you see on your screen. And thank you for watching.